Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Steel Target Paint Podcast. I'm Jeff Jones, and my partner,
Steve Foster. What's going on, Jeff?
not much, Steve. How are you? You been doing any shooting lately?
Man, I was shooting all weekend. I had a visitor in from, let's just say, out of state doing some training and shot the local Griffin match together. Yeah, it was pretty cool. How about you, Jeff? You been doing any shooting?
Yeah, normally I go to Frostproof on the first Saturday of the week, the month, but this month they have the low cap nationals going on, so the bays are all used, set up for USPSA. So I went up to the Hernando match. It's a smaller match. They only run 5 stages, all classifiers, and took the Iron Sight revolver out and had some fun up there shooting revolver. Shot a personal best in one of the stages, and again, another one of those days where that string, I'm brilliant, and the next string, I probably should never shoot a gun again.
The revolver's got a way of doing that to you. It somehow teaches you a lesson.
But, we had a little talk last episode about the Area 6 steel match, and you reached out to our next guest who crushed it there. Why don't you tell everybody who we have on tonight?
Yeah, we've got the amazing, the blazing, I don't know, I guess we've got to come up with a nickname for you, Chris Barrett. Welcome, Chris Barrett. Good to have you, brother.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
I'm assuming you shot the Griffin match this weekend.
I did, yeah. I was there.
Well, Chris, you had a great performance at Area 6. You're really crushing it and staying consistent. And I'm proud to say I'm a teammate and a friend, and it's just great to see good people doing well. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, it's just been a lot of hard work, but I'm happy to see it paying off, and I appreciate the love.
Well, tell everybody, how old are you right now, Chris?
I'm 19.
19. And when did you first shoot a gun, and, who took you to that first shooting experience?
So I was probably like 10 or 11, and it was actually my grandpa. He took us out to his range and we shot a bolt action, probably 20 yards or so. It was pretty interesting.
And what gun?
I couldn't tell you. I think it was a Marlin, but I couldn't tell you.
Well, 22? Or were you
Yeah.
shooting something bigger?
No, it was a 22 for the first time.
So 22 was cemented into your shooting experience from an early age.
Yep, it was.
So, Chris, for those that don't know, where do you live and where do you train at?
So I'm from Georgia. I'm in Canton, about an hour north of Atlanta, and I shoot at Riverbend, which is about 30 minutes from my house.
Cool. So when did you really first start shooting Steel Challenge?
So I started shooting Steel Challenge probably about 4 years ago at a local club, just trying to branch out and try new things.
So what division were you shooting when you first started?
I started out shooting rimfire pistol iron and rimfire rifle iron. Those are the first two rifle and pistols I shot.
Ah, I got you. Well, let's back up a second. Being 19, you in school yet, or what do you got going on there from the academic side?
Oh, I am. I'm going to North Georgia.
So what are you going to school for?
Right now I'm going for business management and marketing, but I really just want to stay in the shooting world, so I'm trying to find a path to go into that kind of field.
Cool deal.
Yeah, with the business degree, that gives you an opportunity to do a lot of different things. There's a lot more than just making guns, marketing and advertising and all that kind of stuff. So I think you're making a good decision there.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate it.
So what is it about Steel Challenge that draws your interest?
Well, I always love the steel aspect of it. You shoot a shot, you get an audible ring, and you can really call your shot. When you shoot USPS with the papers, you just see dirt fly. You got all these misses. It's just different. When you hear that sting ring, it's just, amazing feeling.
Hey, Chris. Well, Jeff has that experience shooting steel, the dirt flying and all that.
Hey,
sorry.
It's because they're edgers, okay? They give you the whole plate, and the edges are good.
That's right.
Oh, All right, man. So let's kind of get into the meat and potatoes because, I know you pretty well and I know what you do in terms of a practice routine and all that kind of stuff. And I've talked about you a little bit on the podcast and I've talked a lot about you to a lot of people. Why don't you kind of break down and walk us through what's your practice routine look like? How often and what are you doing and that type of thing?
So during the off season, I do about 2 days a week. But for the last couple of months with the 60 thing, I've been doing 3 days a week, and I've been trying to shoot all 8 stages, which has been hard at times, but I'm getting it done. And then on the weekend, I'm also shooting 8 stages at local clubs. But for my main practices, we just set up 2 or 3 stages, and we pretty much we run 6 mags, 25 shots or whatever, 25 shots, and just practice it somewhat like a match and just try to work on my feet, my shots, the timings, and everything like that.
So you don't have the advantage of a home range, Jeff, but he's working on that, I'm sure. Stay in school, Chris.
I wish someday.
So tell me a little bit more about that because, you guys are how far do you live away from the gun range? About half an hour or so?
Yeah, about 30 minutes.
Okay. So by the time you pack up all your steel, you drive 30 minutes. How long are you at the range on an average practice session?
So our average practice is about 2.5 hours, sometimes 3. Just by the time we get there, unload the van, carry all the steel up the hill, up to the base, set it up, walk it off. It takes about that long.
So let me get this straight. Hold on.
Go ahead.
You shoot usually two stages, and you shooting all the 6 guns that you shoot?
So if I'm shooting when I shoot 2 stages, I will shoot 6 guns. If I shoot 3 stages, I'll do 3 guns per stage. I'll mix them up.
Okay, so 6 guns, 2 stages, so you're shooting 12 stages, and you're saying you're shooting 6 mags a gun?
Yep.
Okay, so 6 mags a gun. So I don't know if I have enough fingers to do the math. 6 mags would be 60 shots. 6 guns would be 360 rounds, 2 stages. So in an average practice, you're doing about 720 shots.
Yeah.
If I did the math right.
That sounds right.
And the reason I point that out is, I tend to go and shoot anywhere between 4 and 6 guns when I practice, and I try to get 2 stages in. I think the key here is that you're only shooting 6 mags, and that because after amount of time, I don't know if you find this, but you've got to really stay focused, in say rounds 500 to 720, because you're getting tired, and picking the right guns to shoot and when to shoot. You practice in both iron and optics. Which ones do you tend to shoot first?
I try to shoot them just like I do in the matches. So I start off with both pistols. I go iron pistol, open pistol, and then I just continue that pattern up to I shoot PCCs last.
Okay. So you go iron, open, and back and forth between the pistols and the rifles.
Yep, exactly.
Excellent.
So let's kind of walk through that part of it, and we'll get back to the training side. So the main 6 divisions you're competing in right now are what, Chris?
So rimfire pistol iron, rimfire pistol open, both the rimfire rifles, and both the PCCs.
Gotcha. And you plan to add a gun or so next year?
Yeah, I'm thinking about adding open, but I'm still working on it. It's a lot different than shooting rimfire with the draw and everything. But
the draw's humbling, yeah.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's a whole different aspect.
Funny story, Steve. I think the very first match, and probably the only time, and he might have even had a malfunction, but when I met Chris, I beat him. One time.
Oh, yeah.
And I want him to get into open because I may have a chance for a small amount of time.
Man, I want him to get it open just to free up some room down here for me, you know what I mean? Tell me which gun you're dropping. That's what I'm practicing with now. So you're shooting at least 700 rounds or 700 rounds or so a practice session. So you're doing that 2 to 3 times a week. Plus you're shooting just about a match every weekend, right? Because you're shooting probably CMP this weekend. You shot Griffin last weekend. What other
Right.
matches do you shoot?
There's one up in Saudi Daisy in Tennessee, and then usually after that I'll just do a practice at my house, or at the local range, I mean.
Gotcha. Whew. So how many rounds a month do you think you're shooting?
Oh, probably about 6,000, I believe.
Yeah, that's a lot of bullets. I did get into a conversation, whenever you've come over to my house and we've practiced and whatnot, we practice and shoot steel challenge stages, and I got an interesting question this last weekend, somebody that wanted to focus on, steel challenge shooting. It's like, well, what drills are there? Well, it's timer goes off, you shoot those 5 plates as fast as you can without missing. And let's talk a little bit more about that, Chris. What are you working on when you're shooting those 5 targets? Pick a gun or whatever. What are you trying to do? So you're shooting at 6 mags or so. What's your goal? Are you trying to shoot it like you're in a match? Or are you trying to push that edge a little bit? Or what's going through your head when you're out there on the range practicing?
So it depends on what kind of match I have coming. If it's the Worlds or something like that coming up, I try to practice them like the match. I just try to just one for one, see it hit them, and try to get my timing right. But if it's like the off season, then I'll do 2 or 3 mags just to kind of get going, just kind of find the sights, find the targets, and then I'll do one just about as fast as I can pull the trigger. And if I hit them, I hit them. And then I'll take the next mag and I'll back it off and go back to 1-to-1 or 1-for-1, which is usually faster than they were. And then I'll do a final one that's just like 1-for-1, kind of slow, but really like kind of finding that par number, like where you want to be steady at.
Yep.
Chris, let me ask you this, because I have an opinion on it. When you practice, do you do makeups?
I do.
Okay, because I don't, and the reason I don't, and when I train I don't, is that now you're at a different level. But for when I train and when I train people, I say if of course if you've got 10 in a mag, it gives you 2 strings. If you do a makeup, then you got to change mags, which
Right.
isn't a bad thing if you've got enough mags. But then you got to, if you don't have enough mags, you're reload and all that. But the reason I do that is because I say I want you to know, and I want to know, where am I missing? Why am I missing? Did I pull the trigger too soon? Did I pull the trigger too late? And so forth. And again, neither one is right or wrong. I was just wondering what you do. So thank you.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, it definitely is a good idea to just shoot 5, and it also gives you a good idea of, well, if you're shooting, you can see you're shooting too fast. So you shoot 5 shots. You shoot 6, and it's a little bit higher. I like doing the makeups just because in the match, if you miss one, you're going to have to make it up.
Yep.
So 2019 has really been an explosive year for you. I think you and I met for the very first time at the 2017 Alabama State Rimfire Challenge Championship. And I remember you and your dad pulled in next to me, and, we had a quick conversation. And Jeff, I'm like, who the heck's this kid? I've never seen him before. And had an opportunity to watch him shoot a stage. I was like, oh, man, that kid, if he gets this stuff dialed together, we're all in trouble. And so that was a couple of years ago. But 2019 has been definitely a great year. I think, it was this past March at the Georgia State match. That's the first time you broke 70, correct?
That's right.
So what was the biggest aha moment that really helped you in your shooting to be able to, because I know, you and I have talked a lot about it over the last year and a half or so. You wanted to break 70 so friggin' bad. This is a G-rated show, but you wanted to break 70 so bad. What was it that finally sank in and you were able to, break 70 in a big way, and then you were knocking on the mid-60s before long?
Well, I think the biggest thing that helped me was calling my shots. It was actually from you who told me it, but I started really being able to call my shots, see, okay, I missed that one for sure. But then I turned that even more to just shooting 1-for-1. If I shot
Right.
1-for-1, it was usually a lot faster than my makeup shots. And it's just that's how I've tried to practice, how I've tried to do everything is how consistent can I be 1-for-1.
Yeah, and I've shared this story with probably 50 people, and I shared it this past weekend doing some training that I think it was the first time you came over to my house when we were practicing together. You shot Showdown, and I think it was with your rimfire rifle iron gun. I don't think it was your open gun, but it was one of the two rifles. And Jeff, I think I've shared this with you before. You know, Chris gets up there and just lets one loose. He shot a 141, and I've got it on video. He shot a 141 and had a makeup on the back right 18 by 24 with a split time of a .14. And I was like, I looked at his dad. I went, holy, well, I almost just had to beat myself, you know, because it was at that point in time that I knew, oh my gosh, just dialed in just a little bit. And, you know, you transition a gun so fast, and you're able to process information so fast. I really think that you've got a gift that you've worked extremely hard to materialize into what it is today. But how do you go from going from that 1-to-1 to be consistent? You know, because that's, you know, you're right. That's what we talked early on about. To now, you're just, even if you're not going 1-for-1, you're still really fast. What is that transition? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I think the way it's going is because I have that baseline of 1-for-1 is this fast, that
Right.
even if I push it a little bit and have a makeup, well, I'm still in that general area.
Right.
You know, it's a really good point, Steve, and this is something I've been talking to a lot of people about, is that you have to find your fastest 1-for-1. And I tell people, you know, and there's a big, you know, hubbub about the time changes that are coming up, and people are like, oh, why are you changing the times and all that? And I said, stop. I said, look at your scores. I said, if a graph of your scores looks like an EKG, then you're probably taking extra shots into your score, and that's causing you a lot of time. And, you know, okay, you said Chris made up the back right plate and Showdown in .14. That's phenomenal. That's not most people's makeup speed.
No.
You know, most people's makeup speed is probably going to be somewhere between 0.3 and 0.5 in the rimfire or the PCC.
Right.
And I tell him, I said, if you'd have just taken an extra tenth of a second and got it, suddenly now you're 0.4 ahead of the game.
Right. Yeah.
And, you know, and this game is about speed, but it's also about accuracy, because let's face it, we can go out there and, you know, go for the blind squirrel run. In fact, Steve, do you remember the Georgia State match 2 years ago on Smoke and Hope?
Yes, I do.
I had 4 great stages. I think I shot one of the best ones I've ever shot. It was like a 670 or a 680. And I looked at Steve and I said, you want to say it? And he goes, watch this. And I said, hold my beer. And I got up there and I ripped it. And it was like a 138 with like 3 misses. So it didn't matter how fast I was going. I had 9 extra seconds on that score.
But Jeff, you look good doing it. That's all that really matters.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was a cold day too. Ooh, that was brutal.
Thank goodness they moved the match to March instead of February. So
yes. In fact, at the end of the match, we'll announce when it's going to be this year for those that haven't heard yet, because the date is official. But yeah, that 1-for-1 is so key. And, you know, it really cemented home at a match. I was listening to you and sorry. You and Ron were talking, and you were both talking about how many shots you took into score. So you knew how many extra shots you were taking to score. And that really impressed on me the importance of that 1-for-1, and those extra shots really add up. So for all you shooters out there, you know, go back to your latest match and look at what your best time was on a string, and you probably were 1-for-1. Multiply that by 4 for all your stages and see what your time comes out. And that's what your current potential is, just going 1-for-1. Same speed, no, not having to go any faster, but just going 1-for-1.
Yeah, and I think the other point that Chris makes, at least a couple of moments ago, was around, you know how fast you're supposed to shoot. You know, there's a lot of people that don't want to hear their times called. I personally like to hear my times called. You do as well, don't you, Chris?
I do.
Yeah, so because it kind of gives you a baseline so you can reconfirm, you know, how fast that you are shooting. If you're shooting 5 to go and it's 2 seconds and it felt like 2 seconds, you know that your internal clock's on point, and that's a big deal because some days you have it and some days you don't, and the days that you don't, you just got to back it down a little bit. So what's the biggest tip that you have for us, Chris? You know, there's a lot of people listening to this podcast that are pretty serious in the steel challenge. I see new people at the range across the country when I'm traveling around. I know you do as well, that people are trying to get hardcore in it and they want to get better. So what's your biggest tip that you have for them to get better?
So my biggest tip is get a timer, just because you gotta have that. You gotta just get used to hearing that timer go off and get up on the timer and get all your shots going. If you can, you're able to have students to practice or go find somebody to practice with. That's super helpful because then you can find your stage plans and all that kind of stuff. And then probably the most important is just find what works best for you. Like if you go up to a stage, you want to find what pattern can you shoot the most consistent. And then once you get those kind of baseline numbers, like you said, make a chart. And all right, these are the times, these are the par numbers I'm looking for per string or per stage, and then try to work on that, either make them faster or more consistent.
Yeah, that's great advice. And Jeff, if you didn't know, Chris's dad is Jeff Barrett, and Jeff's and Jeff is an avid golfer, and so that's where the par stuff comes from. And I think it's a great analogy because as you're shooting, you want to be able to understand where you're expected to be or what's par on the course of fire, which is really cool.
Well, I got to shoot a lot this past or 2 weekends ago with Chris, and I've shot with him in the past. And you know, I hear, you know, a lot of times Barrett, Jones were kind of close to each other. Chris is usually first, but you know, I might be third or fourth. And you know, Jeff will say something like, "Okay, you're looking for a 1.7. You're looking for a 1.9,"
Right.
and that's that par time that Chris has now got. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. And then you hear that and you go, "Okay, I just hit a 1.9 at my 80%. I can step it up, and I'm going to be under where I need to be." So, Chris, I saw a video of you with Steve, and I liked it because it broke what a lot of people consider to be the norm, which is cutting your eyes to the next plate.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't cut your eyes. You keep that dot in the reticle, and you track to each plate. But do you actually stop on every plate?
So for me, that really just depends on the stage. If I'm shooting pendulum 5 to go, I try to. I'm not saying I stop fully. I don't think I ever dead stop the gun. I kind of more slow down, I guess I want to say. But then like roundabout or showdown, the first 2 shots, I don't even really see them. And then like on roundabout especially, first 2 shots, I can tell you where they hit, but I'm not really stopping. I'm just yanking those 2 off. And then about the time I get to the 5th plate, I start slowing down, get back to the 4th, and I kind of slow down on the 4th one, hit the stop plate to end it. So I don't know if I truly ever stop the gun. It's more of a, I want to say maybe delay or a slide.
You downshift. You know, I'm an old stick shift car driver, so you're downshifting, but you're not stopping.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Gotcha.
So tell us a little bit about, I know Ryan Wagner and I have talked a lot about this in the past, about shooting with both eyes open, or do you shoot with one eye open with your limited guns?
So with the dots especially, I shoot both eyes, but I got started out shooting with iron guns. So for me, shooting one eye open was what I kind of learned, and still what I have to do with it. When I do it with the iron guns, if I shoot with both eyes, I tend to lose the back sight for some reason, and I start just getting weird hits on the plates.
I do the same thing. I actually, I don't like to squint, but when I shoot irons, at least the rifles, PCC and rimfire, I put an eye patch on. So I'm still in a comfortable facial position, and just put an eye patch on. Same concept. And for the same reason, well, not for the same reason. You say you lose the back sight. I actually see 2 front sights.
Chris, that's some old man stuff. Just in case.
Yeah, sometime in about 19, so that'd be 36 years, you'll have that same problem.
Write that down. Put it in a time capsule.
So one thing, I mean, you gave a good tip to people get a timer, recorder times, and all that. I mean, how about, and you talked about, finding the different patterns and all that kind of stuff. But what's your mental game like?
So every stage for me, I focus very, very much on my feet and how I'm set up on the stage. So I go up to every stage. I have so I want my body aimed towards this plate. I go up there and I find to where I can get to every plate naturally, and then I just really get that focused and get kind of zeroed in, and then I put a mag in and get ready to go.
I don't know how many people this at Area 6 kind of, I don't know if they gawked or, you've got a very interesting shooting stance.
Right, yeah.
And everyone's like, what is he doing? I'm like, just watch.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I played basketball for many years, so I'm used to having your hips out and letting them eat.
Hey, go with what works. I don't think anybody can, if somebody says, well, that's not right. The kid shot under 60, okay? Right or wrong, it doesn't matter. It's the outcome that counts.
That's true.
My best working theory at this point, Jeff, is he's like 6 foot something and I'm 5 foot nothing. So he's trying to get a competitive advantage to be my height. So that's why he's getting a little bit lower. The plates look like a straight line on roundabout.
That's great.
How much of your lower body would you say moves when you're shooting a stage like, let's say 5 to go, or, something that's got a pretty wide transition, from the first plate to the last plate, or speed option? Are you really driving with your lower body or upper body or both?
So I drive probably like 85% my lower body. My upper body, like with my rifles especially, I just lock my elbow in on my right arm. I just lock it down on the trigger, and then I take my left arm and I do it almost parallel, 90 degrees horizontal on the gun just to drive it. So I usually use my hips to mainly, I guess, accelerate the next to each plate, and then I kind of use my arm to slow it down or not, but I pretty much use my hips to really drive it to plate.
Gotcha. How much are you pulling in on your rifle when you're shooting? Are you just offering more lateral support, or are you pulling in on the gun a decent amount with a rifle?
I pull in the gun. Yeah, I pull in the gun a good amount. It's just what I found is natural. If I really get that thing locked in my arm, I get that gun parallel to the plates, I know it's going to be level with the rest of the stage.
Yeah, gotcha.
So, beginning of the year, you finally got under 70. Alabama, you shot under 60. Is it rounds down range? Is it, understanding, position in the what is there one thing that you could say is you've tied into getting better?
So I think the biggest thing that I've tied into getting better is probably practice.
No, thank you. Thank you. Get it, Steve. Yeah. Did you hear it, Steve? Everybody out there, you have to practice.
Oh, yeah.
And a match is not practice.
Yeah, true.
Anything else? Sorry to interrupt, but I was waiting for you to say that because I knew you were going to say that, because that's what counts. And but is there anything else? Is there something at practice other than I like your regimen. You start out slow. You say you've got that one where you just go as fast as possible, not worrying about whether you hit or miss. I call that the wild thing.
Right.
And I think that's a very positive tool because it actually sets. It gives you an idea of had I hit all those, that's as fast as I could ever shoot that stage right now. And it also helps you train to see the sights or the dot faster.
Right, definitely. But yeah, I think my biggest thing with practice is, well, let's like at Area 6, it was kind of rainy, you have a bad weekend, or it's rainy and muddy. Well, I can fall back on that practice and really sit down on, okay, this is what it felt, I guess, kind of slow in practice, and I go to the match and I do it. If I have that same feeling where everything's kind of in slow motion, then I know I'm in kind of the zone, I guess.
Gotcha.
You ever get frustrated at matches or get distracted, Chris? 'Cause whenever I shoot with you, you always seem pretty calm, cool, and collected. And don't get me wrong, if you tank a stage or get a little loose on one, we all are a little disappointed. But I never see you really too distracted, or you're pretty even keel.
Yeah, so, I mean, even if you do have a bad stage, there's usually 8 stages, and you can not always make that time up, but you don't want to let that one stage affect another stage is how I look at it. I've had matches when I first got started where I would have a stage just go awful, and then the next stage would go awful, and I kept continuing it. Well, now I just work my butt off to, like, keep everything, I guess, kind of cool and calm. Just even if something does go wrong, well, there's a new stage, a new shot, and just try not to let it bug me.
Gotcha.
Steve, that's a really good point. There was a shooter at Area 6, and they came off the stage and like, oh, I just gave up 3 seconds on Smoke and Hope. I'm going to have to find that someplace else in the match. And I went, no, you're not. And they looked at me like, what do you mean? I said, if you could shoot those other stage faster, why aren't you shooting those other stages faster now? Do you really think, because that time is gone. And, I was trying to impress on them that you've got a certain amount of time. If your average time on, pendulum is 2.5 seconds, so you're going to shoot that in 10 seconds, don't think you're going to go up there and shoot in 8.5 just because you will it. You'd be better off shooting that 10-second stage and staying consistent the rest of the match than sitting there and trying to go the wild thing and make up time, because 95 times out of 100, you're probably going to shoot it worse than you could have if you'd have just settled down and gone 1 for 1.
Jeff and I joke all the time about some of these junior shooters and this and that. So we got 2 very important questions for you. Number 1, do you have a girlfriend? And number 2, do you have a vehicle that you can get distracted with a girlfriend in and spend less time shooting? Just asking.
For a friend.
So I do.
Asking for a
friend.
I
have both, actually. I have had a girlfriend for 2 years now, and I've had a car for about a year and a half now with college. And so far, I'm still doing my thing.
Dang it, Jeff, I told you this kid is awesome. Dang.
Well, nice try. We got to come up with something else.
I know. What's next? I was just going to brainstorm for a minute. What else is next?
I will pay your match fees not to shoot.
I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So back to this whole 60-second thing. Obviously, that's a significant accomplishment. What would you say has been the top couple accomplishments you've had in your shooting or career, or memories that really stick out to you?
So, I mean, definitely the breaking 60. And then I think probably the next closest was actually last weekend at Area 6, where I shot 4 guns under 64. And I think my next probably closest was I also shot my pistol open for the first time at 68, like 36, which is the fastest I've ever shot a pistol, which I was very happy with. And I guess other accomplishments was probably the Worlds. I came in second in PCCI, and I was very happy with that. It was the first time I really did anything at the Worlds.
Yeah, I know everybody's not looking forward to you showing up at the U.S. Steel Shoot if they have it this year, or the World Speed Shoot next year. Yeah. Yeah, I'll be going up there to accept my second place to Chris Barrett trophy.
I don't know. Steve. I think you'd be right there with me. I don't know.
We'll see if we can work it out between now and then, but hopefully I can be the second guy below 60. We'll see. It's got to come together a little bit. I don't know if I've told you this or not, but I've been trying to drop some weight. Whenever we practiced outer limits together, Jeff, I can't even tell you, man. this man is moving from box to box early, son. So I'm trying to get that first shot off, and I'm leaning and barely got my foot outside the box trying to cut like a third of a second. And practicing with Chris, he shoots it routinely in the low threes, and then he started throwing up some high twos. I'm like, what would Gandhi do? He would fast, so I'm not there yet, but I've lost 23 pounds. I need to lose. I don't even want to know how much you weigh, Chris, because I need a stretcher to get that kind of weight. But hopefully that's the piece of my game. I've had some good practice times with outer limits, but I need to be in that 950, 960 range or somewhere in there to really have a legitimate shot of shooting a sub 60. So, yeah, hopefully, Chris. Hopefully we'll get there. We'll see.
It's all worth it, Steve. I came back from the World Shoot in, I think it was 2 years ago, and saw some pictures and went, I got to do something. And, I've been fortunate. I found a method of eating that suits my habits and helps me lose weight. It rhymes with Beto, and I use that because for all you that don't know, he dropped out of the race, so your ARs are safe. But find something that works, and it's not only helping your shooting career, but it's also going to help your longevity of your life. So that's fantastic. Keep up the good work.
Appreciate it. All right, Chris, why don't you give us a little bit of a rundown of your equipment? Everybody wants to know what you were shooting when you broke this 60-second barrier. So what kind of equipment were you running?
So I'm shooting a Magnum Research, which is Desert Eagle or car arms, and it's their switch bolt model, which is where you can have it on the right or left. And I was running the open version, which is with the riser and everything. Blackhawk action stock. I run a kid trigger, single stage, 2 pounds. I love those triggers. And CCI mini mags for my ammo right now.
Awesome. It's a pretty sweet setup. Jeff, I shot it, I don't know, I guess it's about 2 days ago. I said, hey, let me see that thing, Chris. Let's see what's going on here. And, man, it's it's a lighter build than what I shoot, probably, I don't know, half a pound or so. But it's very, very well balanced. It's it's a beautiful, beautiful gun. So, no, I appreciate you sharing that with us, because that's probably one of the top questions I get fielded, because I know Chris Barrett. They're like, hey, what's he shooting, Steve?
Oh, yeah. I'm always happy to answer questions.
Well, what are you shooting in the PCC realm?
So I'm shooting a JP GMR 15 with their 14-inch barrel with the pinion-loaded comp.
Same gun, open and iron?
Yep, I run it both ways. I just have a pair of flip-down billy strip-on sights, and I have a Vortex quick detach, and I just pop it on and off and shoot it both ways.
And you're shooting a Razor, right? A 6 MOA?
Yep, that's right.
Sweet.
And then what about your pistols?
So right now I'm shooting Volt 14. I'm shooting the iron open version, same guns, the 4-inch barrels, American flags.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something about you're going to start shooting open. What's your open gun?
So we actually just got in a STI steel mount. Oh, no, it's the BBC steel. So it's the one I can shoot normal power loads through and not have to have the major power.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be shooting major power factor in a steel match.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Some people do it. I don't get it.
Well, a lot of people, they don't shoot enough steel to realize, I was talking with a competitor and he was talking about, well, I got to get my compensator to work. And I'm like, do you know how much extra rise your gun has just because of that? And you want your compensator to work? I said, if you just downgrade your ammo, downgrade your springs, the gun's not going to move to begin with.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Anybody you want to give a shout out to, Chris?
I mean, I want to thank my parents especially because, like I said, my dad's got every match with me, driving me places, helping me pay for all this. Especially with college and everything, he's helped me out with the ammo and match fees. So that's probably the biggest person. And then all my sponsors.
Name them. Give them their props.
All right. I mean, there's still Target Paint. Gotta be able to see those shots on the plates. Car car arms and Magnum Research. Couldn't have broke it without that done. Indie Ammo, just for making good ammo. Vortex, great optics, great customer service. And JP especially, can't shoot. Now I shoot that gun both ways, 8 stages all the time. It just runs. Can't be happier. Hunter's HG Gold, you guys see the plates. And Billy Strickland for helping get my guns tuned and get them running.
Awesome.
Sweet. Well, Jeff, I think that's all the questions I have for Chris. Jeff, do you have any more questions for Chris?
Yeah, just one thing. What do you got planned for, the rest of this year and next year for goals? You think a sub 50 is in order?
So, I mean, my goal is just to keep on rocking, I guess. I mean, I'm going to keep trying to put the work in during the off season when it's cold out, just try to go once a week or so and just try to keep my muscles and everything in the same, timings and stuff on stages, and just try to keep it going until the Nationals and Worlds and see if I can't keep repeating it.
Fantastic. Well, Steve, I want to say something now. For those that don't know, Steve has $2. His oldest daughter is going in for surgery. This is being recorded first weekend in November. It's the second week in November, correct, Steve?
Yeah, the 11th.
The 11th. And anytime you got to go in for surgery, it's you got to be careful. The outlook is good, but I want everybody that listens to this just to put some good words in your thoughts and your mind for Vanessa, so she comes through this strong and her recovery is easy and she's back to being a kid. Anytime a kid's sick with anything or has anything, it's a terrible thing. And I've met Vanessa. She's a sweet girl, very, very nice, very respectful, and I just want everybody to put out a good word for her and keep her in your thoughts, that all goes well next week for her.
Appreciate it, Jeff. It means a lot.
Absolutely, Steve.
Well, thank you so much, Chris, for being on the podcast tonight. Appreciate it, and look forward to shooting with you again real soon.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate y'all having me.
Thanks, Chris. We really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Hey,
guys.
Steve, wait. You know what we didn't do? Give out that Steel Target Paint Podcast coupon code.
All right. Use discount code STPodcast10, and just 1 second, we got a special visitor. Hang on. Here he comes. Alabama Shakes, the current World Rimfire Cowboy Champion.
Woohoo!
Howdy, cowpokes. Alabama Shakes, the reigning Rimfire World Champion Cowboy. Yeehaw! Coming to you way down here in Dixie. Just want to let y'all know we got a special program. It's called the Auto Reorder Program on Rainstore.net. Man, it's a doozy. Sign up. Get free shipping and 5% discount on Steel Target paint. 1 case or more. 1 case to a truckload. Go on and get a wagon load. Get all you can get. But you better get it and get on the auto reorder program today. Alabama Shakes signing off. Yeehaw!
All right. Thanks again, Chris. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Yeah, y'all too.